As promised, we've rearranged the set. This is the other sort of major arrangement that these pieces have. There's a bunch of smaller little rooms and locations that we do using them, but this is like a grand staircase sort of in the main room of the house, is sort of what we're sort of showing you here. Sort of. Not to overuse that phrase, but I'm excited about the Newel posts. We didn't know this, a bunch of different ways to do it. I'm just one man. I wish I had more carpenter's helpers to be able to order up this and order up that. We could have gone with square style and made some other baluster. I'm in no way disappointed by the look of this, but I kind of have to go with what's really fast and cheap. So I'm working with a circular Newel post idea for right now, and I think that'll do us. It makes a nice juxtaposition between, so we don't have spiral circular turned baluster posts to create balustrade. We've got these real modern squares, and so to have a big fat circular what looks like wood Newel system at the top and at the bottom, and then we'll go, usually there's a hierarchy, so the posts that are here at the inside corner will be smaller in diameter as of right now. And then I want sort of a spaceship, not completely literally, but a fat, wide sort of saucer ship thing sitting on top of these. So I'll probably find some cheap serving bowls or something and get 8 of them and put them together and quickly construction adhese them together and put them on top. And we could always use some EVA foam, which will can be cut up with a razor blade and applied to this to create what looks like dental or other fine carpentry features in this on the circle itself. And the way I did these was just to I'll show you this one. I laid them out so that the center works out on the edge of the stair, and so handrail come in toward the inside and then wrap over here, and like we said before, that'll be done with PVC under here, and then that'll stop, and I'll take the foam insulation that is actually the handrail itself, and that'll easily wrap here, which will make that work smoothly. But what I did was I laid out this, come on fella, it's a snug fit, it's come on, there we go. I laid out the location, and then I used a punch to make a bunch of little indents right on the line, and then I came back with the drill set up to 3/16, and because I punched right on the line, my drill didn't walk, and I was able to drill right on the line. And then I ran the jigsaw in here back and forth to the outside of the holes and to the inside of the holes, and made enough of a crevasse to be able to notch my sonotube, and which I went to the store and found 4 that were exactly the same diameter, because these aren't made to a tight tolerance. If you just get 8-inch tubes like that there, and you look at the store, they vary in diameter plus or minus almost an inch, which is crazy. So I found a set of 8 laying there that were the same diameter visually, and notched them, and that carries on down here, so this will wrap right around, and there's a nice shape there. So what I'll have to do is get a longer stair with an arch, or with an arc for the top here, and then we'll carry that through and down to about this level, and then I'll find some other little bowls or something like that to glue together, and I'll take the back of them off, but they'll stick to the bottom of it hanging down like a finial kind of a thing. And then these we're going to do, because when you get up there, this railing system isn't structurally sound. You know, we're not going to let stage crew push on any of this stuff because it won't take it. They're going to have to learn that early. But I did make this knee wall on the back side of everything up there that I'm going to have to mirror on that side. Now that we've decided, we went round and around about how much wall to have or not have back here. What we're going to do is finish that to look like wainscot, and we'll do the same thing along the bottom here, and that'll tie the look of this sort of grand space all together, and put a chair rail on the other side along the top of it, and then this whole back side will just be smooth. There will be baseboard wrapping around it, and I will trim this door opening, you know, up around what looks like across the end and back. I'm going to run into trouble, like I can't add 3-dimensional trim right here because this is the end that butts up to the other one. These are rearranged, so that'll have to just be painted to look that way. There'll be some places where we don't actually have dimension but your eye shouldn't notice that. And then I wanted to put a cap on that, so the chair rail on the other side, but on this side, put a cap and hang it long off of there so I could put crown molding along underneath, which I thought would make a cool detail. But these pieces actually turn and the sides sit together so that I think that crown molding would crash into itself. So I may not be able to do that. But this has just been a sort of a process of discovery. But we got a more permanent sort of location for the weights that counterweight the outer ends here when these pieces are, you know, rolling around by themselves, and that'll be encapsulated with Luan. And I've got a bunch of ties in here, triangulating and locking that up. I may add a few more. I got to add a few more here, and then we'll just go right on up with Luan on this. And then rather than like mud like you do with drywall, we just use gaff tape on these seams and paint that stuff out, and you'll never notice it. I'll go around these with construction adhesive at the top and underneath, and I'll put a level on it. Like the end of the day when everybody's leaving and I'm leaving, I'll do all of that, and then just use the level on both axes to make sure it's perfectly plumb. I'll leave that to dry overnight. And we've got this rolling double door that works in this space when the two, you know, alcoves come together, but we have a rolling single door that's otherwise the same height and built the same style that'll roll in and work in this half of an alcove if we want to do that, which is really cool. And we have some other stuff coming together here. We've got Pugsley's torture drawn and quartered sort of situation. We've got the this is actually real wrought iron that somebody had, which is neat, but this will be the front of the mausoleum where the ancestors live. We've got a hideaway bed that does double duty. This is just a prototype, but we're gonna have a headboard that swaps on to make for two different beds, and this will look like it's made up as a real bed, but we've got a little space for the monster under the bed to hide away there. There's our doors ready to be hung. Again, we got to make some adjustments to the opening in there, and all of our Luan waiting to go on. All in all, though, I did use Doug fir 2x4 to create this here, because that stands alone by itself, and I may actually remake this 1/2-inch end cap and take and include this end right in that whole piece, so that when it's applied to that, it cranks that over perfectly vertical, which you don't notice it isn't until the two pieces come together back to back, and then that gap comes in tight, and then you have something, you know, that looks like this, to exaggerate it, or you know, vice versa. It really calls that out. So you got to have things. That's the type of thing that I'll use plywood to make it perfect. You know, you do all these things so that it looks really sharp on, you know, from the house. But what was I getting at? Oh, the Doug fir. I mean, these 2x4s are just, you know, they're beauties. Just straight as an arrow, nice and dense. They probably each weigh 3 times as much as this spruce or white lumber. All of this was like seconds or third quality. It's all waney. It's not. I mean, this is still a nice straight stick, but depending on what it is that you're trying to do. Also, to pull down into the end grain on this foamy, soft, very low density wood, it just won't pull the head of the screw down into the other piece that you're drawing up tight. It'll run down to the bugle. You know, it'll come in here and stop, and I want it to pull down into the wood a little bit more than that. And end grain is notorious for wiping out and stripping out. However, I have far less trouble in this denser lumber. So in the future, I think I've decided this year I'm never again going to get spruce. In fact, right now, the premium at my Lowe's, my location, the Doug fir wax dipped. This has got wax on the end of it to keep it from soaking up ambient moisture, is just the same price. I don't know what happened, if they got too much of it or whatever, but it was awesome. I wish we had the budget at the school here to buy the whole bunk of it and leave it banded and just have it delivered via forklift and leave it in the basement for next year at that price. I'd love to get that price next year, but for right now, that's worth mentioning. I'm going to use that forevermore. I think when I tell the guys at the other place that I'm building the sets, they just bring me the shittiest junk, thinking that it's a cost savings, or because I don't take set building that seriously. But when you have that trash, you can make it work for you when you're attaching things to a floor and cranking it all around and, you know, framing a new house. But this is a mechanical system more than it is a construction system. It's got to roll all around and be square and true of its own accord. And I fought with it, and still things come in pretty good. And I thought about constructing this as one piece, or at least putting the treads and rises on as one piece and then sawing them apart so that everything came back together perfectly. But since we didn't do that, and since I'm fighting with some of this spruce, you get stuff like this that just bugs me, especially on that top one. If it did that in here a few times, but the top one, the silhouette of this thing never jumped out of line, would be one thing. But it's just, whoa, made that fall over. But it's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. So it's my advice to anybody to spring for nicer quality framing lumber when you're doing this. Just everything here, even in the curl of some of these aren't that bad actually. If you go back and look at the other side, every one of these 2x12s, and that's how it normally goes. You got to get right to them quickly, because as they sit there, the side that faces out dries and the side that faces the stack stays more humid, and so the side that dries pulls in tight and it gets a curl on, and you'll never get that to come out. And that's the type of thing that sits up there, and that's how you get a creaky step in your house if you don't construction adhesive that together, or if you don't build it soon enough. So I'm running out of time here, but thanks for watching. We'll see ya.